Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is the fifth video in a series I've done this week, which I have really called some of the foundational thinking that I and the guys I work with have in terms of how we approach the spatial business. And like I said, we have this perspective where new perspectives, new approaches, and new thinking is needed in our industry. And that's kind of the fundamental thing that we kind of provide as an organization. I just wanted to walk very quickly through the first four videos to then lead into this one, which is on strategy. So we started, really, the first video was all about creativity and imagination and how those are connected to one another, and how creativity isn't really shouldn't just be seen as sort of artists and musicians. It should be more broadly viewed, with creativity being really the application of imagination. So that was the first one we did. The second one was really around this notion of why and purpose. And Simon Sinek was the person I was talking about in that, and his book on Start With Why. So really having that sense of who you are and what you're doing, and having that lead any conversations you have, whether it be in marketing or sales. So that was our second one. Our third one was really taking a look at the notion of lean startup and innovation, and how we need to always to be market led, and we need to be guided by the market, and that journey from ideation to validation to MVPs, that very iterative process that we need to go through, again, being very much led by customers and the market and understanding the problems. So that was our third one. Our fourth one was on crossing the chasm, and actually it's a really good book by Geoffrey Moore. The thing I actually sort of narrowed into was that notion of beachheads. You know, if you've built a product, take it to those areas you can win, those markets, those niches that you can win, and the narrower the better. And the D-Day analogy was one that Geoffrey Moore used and I used, where during the Second World War, the Western Front was opened up by the Americans and the Brits. They sent boats across the English Channel, and they targeted certain beaches they knew they could win. Their bigger goal was Western Europe, but they had to win those initial beaches. You should think about your solutions and products in the same way. So there are there's four talks. I kind of wanted to finish on this last one, which is a bigger topic. And for those that cringe when they hear the word strategy, I am going to talk strategy in this one. And I am going to bring Roger Martin into the conversation and show a brief interview that he gave a little while ago, which I thought was utterly brilliant. And he wrote a book called How to Win. Is it called How to Win? I believe it's called How to Win. But his perspective on strategy is really, really important. And there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. He talks in this, what I'm going to show you in a minute, about choices. So we'll dive into that. He also talks about building strategy against gaps, which again is something that myself and the guys that I work closely with are always thinking about. Where are those gaps and how do we fill those gaps? And strategy is really that place where you identify and you build out that journey to filling in the gaps. So let me play the video, and then I'll come back and do a little talk at the end.
In one or two sentences, what is a strategy? From Roger Martin.
Sure. A strategy is a set of choices that compels people you don't control, the customer, to take actions that you would like them to take. It's compelling to them, right? It's Steve Jobs saying, I'm not forcing you to buy this. Yeah, I have no control over you buying this or not. But you're going to be so compelled by the set of choices I've made as to what this looks like, what the features of it are, what the benefits of it are, that you're going to buy $180 billion worth of them a year. That's a strategy. And how do I think about the need to make a choice? It's that if you ask the question, kind of what are the outcomes we're producing now? You can see what outputs are, whatever our profitability is this, or our share is that, or our share is going down, whatever. These are the outcomes now, right? And then you can ask, well, what do we wish those outcomes were? Right? That produces a gap, right, between what our outcomes are and what we wish they were. And if there's no gap, then don't do strategy, just keep doing what you're doing. But the outcomes of today, right, are a result of cumulatively all the choices we've made up till today, right? Yeah. Every past choice accumulated together is the producer of the outcomes. So what I want people to focus on is what kind of choices do we need to contemplate making differently that would get us to step up from the outcomes we're achieving now to the aspirations that we have, and start the strategy process with that, the contemplation of choices.
So that was a brief snippet of Roger Martin being interviewed by, I'm just reading his name, Sohrab Salimi. I'm sorry, Sohrab. He talks about Agile, and that's part of a series of interviews he's done. Roger Martin being one of the people he regularly pulls on. But if you're interested in Agile and you're interested in some of that content, I would advise go look at the video I'm sharing below with this full interview and the more that he's doing, because Sohrab is doing some really good stuff. So my closing remarks really are wider than what Roger was talking about. That was really just a teaser, a taster. His book is called Playing to Win, as you probably saw behind him, so I got the title wrong. But it's an excellent book. It's a little bit of a heavy read in places, but it's worth working through. Roger writes lots of articles about strategy, and he became famous for making the Rutgers Business School world famous. And in one of the interviews, he talked about how he does that and how he applies strategy to that. So we always, in our group, we always look to build strategy, and we look for the gaps first of all, and then we look to build into to close those gaps, whether it be through marketing, sales, or more broadly business development. And it's can be product centric, can be the internal work, it can be the external work. So we spend a lot of time within the spatial environment thinking some of these, identifying gaps and trying to fill them, and we build strategy around how we're going to make those gaps, close those gaps. So Roger Martin's work is important to us. There's a lot more to what he talks about, and I think the most important piece to his work is he's built a strategy cascade, which has multiple pieces, and he'll talk about how to win, where to play, winning aspirations. There's pieces to this puzzle, but he's really nicely laid out a framework of operation as to how you can build out a strategy. So well worth looking at. I think that's a very foundational piece to the work that we do as we formalize what we think through. And again, remember, a strategy is a hypothesis. Each of the pieces is a hypothesis. Where are you going to play? Which vertical are you going to go after? Are you talking to? You have a hypothesis, and you prove that by going to the market and looking and observing and changing as you go. So a strategy is a dynamic thing, but we're great believers in building strategy. We're great believers in making strategy super simple and not overly complex, and then working against that strategy all the way through. So that's the fifth in the series. I hope these 5 videos give you a sense of certainly where I think and where I've built my sort of base of work, if you like, in the spatial world and the business side of the spatial world. So great frameworks and great people who are writing these books that I've referenced over this. So more to come next week. I'll do another 4 videos on a completely different theme on Monday. But for now, I hope this was a useful week for those that watch this and enjoy these videos. Let me know if you've got comments. If you're watching me on YouTube, feel free to follow me because I do a lot of this stuff. If you're on YouTube, then subscribe to the channel, maybe do some likes as well. That helps me keep building this content up. So again, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. More to come next week.